Buongiorno a tutti, pregherei gli ospiti gentilmente di prendere posto.
Good morning, please take your seats.
Saluto i presenti e tutti coloro che
Welcome to this event. We think this morning we'll have around 2,000 people connected to our website, listening to this event. Over the past few years, all of our events are live streamed. But in times like this, having this event online, it's really important. We also have around 100 people here. Today is the first day we can actually hold events indoor here in Lombardy, so we took the chance, and I'm extremely happy to have you here with us, because this creates continuity with previous events. So this summit is almost like the others. This is the sixth design summit. I would like to thank all of our partners who decided to support us even in this strange time. The topic of today's event is recovery. So together we'll take a snapshot of the design industry today, of the effects of COVID-19 and the outlooks for recovery in this industry. Before moving on to the interviews, we'd like to have on stage Gilda Boiardi from Interni magazine. She's a partner of ours, and she wants to show us a video, and then she will give a short talk. Thank you. Welcome, Gilda.
Sistemo per una questione di
We are extremely pleased to be here with you today and to have people listening to us from their homes. This is the first physical event held by Borsa Milano this year after COVID-19. This pandemic was completely unexpected, and Interni, my magazine, wanted to play the role of communicator to give voice and visibility to the creative efforts of the companies. Of course, companies were getting ready for Salone and Fuori Salone, and we wanted to showcase the efforts and their creativity. On June issue of Interni, we gave voice to these companies, showcasing around 200 new products to show that the creativity of companies never stopped, we gave voice to perspective and reflections of these companies through interviews to designers and architects. And we wanted to talk about recovery. So here you see in the circles, we have the interviews and thoughts of designers and architects. We use these thoughts to understand that the Italian industry wants to preserve the importance of Milan. Of course, not all projects are Milan-based, but the design system in Italy is based in Milan. It starts and it radiates from Milan. And I'm not only talking about technology or innovation, I'm also referring to the to craftsmanship and to the concept of made in Italy. We had to stop our normal life, and we had to reflect on our operations. And we are now prompted to think whether our organizational strategies can be transformed into something else, something that takes place online or remotely. Personally, at first I was really excited by all the events that were held online, but then I felt a bit tired because I realized I miss being actually in touch with people, seeing them and talking to them, because of course online calls cannot replace live events, live sharing. As you know, Interni is a hard copy magazine, but throughout June and July, we found a new way of communicating, a digital newspaper where we gave voice to everything happening through video, stories, discussions, so that even when we had to stay at home, almost like feeling like we were in prison. And in this moment, the house turned into a refuge, a office, not only a home. And we started reflecting on the importance of senses and the importance of empathy with the objects surrounding us. And we wanted to underline the importance of elasticity and functionality, of everything that surrounds us at home. We even started thinking of buying new products. According to recent surveys, people, especially millennials, started understanding the importance of the home and of the objects we have at home. together with the companies that are here today, we created an initiative for Milan in order to preserve the role that Milan fulfills within the international design system. Milan is crucial for the international for its international role. So we went to the city of Milan. We talked with the mayor to organize another event in autumn, and we asked the municipality to organize an event on recovery and rebirth. Milan has to promote its own rebirth. The municipality decided to promote this activity during the last 6 months of the years. The name of the event is Milan Design City. From September 28th to October 10th, Interni is creating a series of events to communicate from Milan to the world. The main players in this for this activity are still designers, distributors, dealers, who will organize events in their showroom in Milan or in their offices. And they will also organize physical and online events to show us all their new products, all their new ideas before launching them on the market. Everything has to be kept safe and in line with the public health guidelines, but we still want to create physical events. Our event will be called Interni Design Week, which is a nod to an event taking place in 1990. When we supported showrooms and galleries here in Milan to organize exhibitions. 1990 was a strange year. We did not organize the Salone del Mobile. The event was supposed to take place in September, then the following year was going to be in April. So in 1990, we did not organize the Salone del Mobile, so we're trying to do the same in 2020. Thank you.
Perfetta. Grazie, Gilda.
Thank you. Thank you, Gilda. And now I would like to give the floor to Alessio Candi, who is Consulting and M&A Director of Pan Bianco. He will talk about the survey that was carried out in the last weeks, and he interviewed a series of CEOs from different businesses and companies.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, well, as Davide said, also this year we prepared our usual survey, and the goal is to give and to take stock of the situation in a specific historical moment which we are going through, both using market data. I would like to thank Jack Sirio, who is one of our providers, and also talking to many of you just to have a more overall picture of the situation, taking into account what is gonna take place in the next few months. Let's start with some data from the market. Well, first of all, I would like to say that in the last 10 years, this is a picture from 2009, 2019, well, we had a growth rate of roughly 40%, more than 3% of CAGR. In 2019, there had been a setback, and this was a setback or something slowing down the growth, minus 1.4%, also due to exchange rates, since this market is estimated in US dollars with exchange rates as well. In terms of category of products, this is also interesting. In the last 10 years, 2009, 2019, well, 50% of the market is made up of, as you can see, tables, chairs, bookcases, and wardrobes, etc. And this is the most important part. Then we have another cluster which had like 40% growth rate. But what drove the growth was the lighting fixtures, more than 40%, and then padded and stuffed items plus 41%, and then kitchens 10% of the market, so market share. In terms of geographical area, here you can see the picture of the last 10 years, and we can see that China, Asia, and also this is the main geographic area. This accounts for 42% of the market today, and we had the growth rate of 83% in the last 10 years, and it is clear that in the last 10 years the market was driven by Asia. Europe had a setback, a bottleneck, and Europe is the main market. The US had a growth rate of 56%, and the rest of the world had a growth rate of 17%. So we can see that apart from US and Europe, Asia was the geographic area that drove the growth in the last 10 years. Then we took a look, as much as available, the balance sheets. We analyzed the balance sheets of the 50 main Italian businesses and groups, as you can see here, and the turnover is more than 9 billion euros. EBITDA is 10%, and the net financial position is 565 millions. And since we are talking about a very particular year, many financial statements and balance sheets are not available. 25% of our sample that we analyze is available, and the growth is 1.2%, as you can see here. In general, we have to say that 2019, taking a look at the forecasts and the outlooks, well, this was a year that was still good, so we could strengthen some businesses, and this was one of the best and most beautiful balance sheets in the last few years in history. And the current situation is giving us different outlooks, minus 20, minus 30% in terms of turnover. As far as 2021 is concerned, we have a question mark, since it is still too early to make forecasts and outlooks. At the moment, we can say that we are quite optimistic about the future, also in terms of outlooks and forecasts, and also starting from the current situation. But we still have the second part of the year, so autumn, fall, and in 2021 we only have some forecasts and estimates, but the reliability rate of all these forecasts is quite low. If we want to talk about the current situation, we can say that, well, we are doing better than expected. If we had to take a picture 3 months ago of how we would do and be after some month, the forecasts would be much worse than they are currently, and they currently are. And the recovery after the shutdown, after the lockdown, is better for two reasons. Firstly, because the shutdown also made it possible to have a very strong and quick recovery. But the second reason, well, the most important data, in my opinion, compared to the previous crisis, is that we still had orders. And when we went back, all the orders we had, this is one of the main indicators we have in this industry, they started again, and sometimes they started in a very timely manner, very quickly. And in terms of geographic areas, we know that Northern Europe did very well. Sometimes we had very positive feedbacks, also unexpectedly from Italy. So China started again very well. This was the first country where we had the shutdown. So the first part of the world that started back, but the most important setbacks and bottlenecks come from the US, where the crisis broke out later than in our countries. Then we also had Black Lives Matter and all the social issues they went through, all the riots, etc., etc. So this is the area that is doing not very well at the moment. One of the worst areas, let's say. The contract sector is doing quite well. We are talking about business projects, and they have very long lifetime, so long life cycle. But we are expecting also a setback in the HoReCa sector, so hotels, restaurants, etc., but also events in general. Well, as far as the main trends are concerned, this is a unique period, let's say, or something we went through, we had never lived before. And this also brought about aspects that are quite important for this industry. So we spent much more time at home. So households and houses were not just lived for sleeping or something like that. We spent a lot of time there. And this also brought about the need for us to understand how important our houses are for us in our life. So the fluidity of the spaces for home office, for example, and or smart working, as it is called, sorry, in Italy. So these offices that they move around, they are not just cluster and indoor. It becomes outdoor. The living furniture items that are also used for the outdoor environments with all the technical features and peculiarities, and kitchens that also moved outdoors, etc., etc. Another topic that was anticipated by Gilda is about the digital issues. Well, in terms of the sector, we can say that design was not the first sector also considering digitalization, digital developments, evolution, etc. And this forced all the companies and businesses to use digital tools that in most cases were already available, but they were not used at the moment. And then social distancing. This was something compulsory, let's say, and also home office, etc., but also externally, not just internally, with in the relationships with the suppliers and providers, but also with the customers and clients. And in this regard, also the fact that the Salone del Mobile didn't take place forced companies to organize the presentations of their collections virtually and not physically. How long it will take before we go back to our standard life, also in terms of event organization, is something that is not known to none of us. All the digital tools were used and implemented during this period. So this is, let's say, good part of this story. Another important topic is about the commerce, as you can see here, and then later Gianluca Malura will go back to these topics. Concerning e-commerce, we have a slide here, and it's Wayfair. Wayfair is the source. It's an American group whose turnover is $9 billion, and 21 are capitalized, and 9 are made online. And they said that in 2019, the online market is 13% of the global market. And in the next 10 years, as they say, this market share will go up to 38%. And these are data concerning Italy from Netcom. Well, in Italy, from 2019 to 2020, we had a growth rate of 30% for e-commerce in all the market sectors. Here we do have some initiatives, digital initiatives that have been carried out for many years: Molteni, Harper, Giorgetti, and Lago, as you can see. Another emerging trend we are going through, and this was already available before, but it's getting stronger and stronger, and we will have a kind of acceleration of all this sector. Well, it's the concentration of the sector. So it didn't stop. These are the M&A operations of the last few years. In the first quarter in 2020, operations were carried out, and we expect that this trend will keep on and continue, since the market is still very split and divided. And we expect that both the product processing companies and the distribution will make the most of it. And the supply and offer in this case, the demand and the supply in this case do not always match. We know there are some important industrial districts that were created for buyers, and this is an opportunity for all of them. Concerning target companies, the vision is a little bit different, since we want to wait for the right moment in order to get the right price. At the moment, the turnover is not so high, but we also need to make decisions. So this is the moment in which we have to take stock of the situation. And if we want to highlight some trends at the moment, we are not seeing a decrease in terms of price and the valuation of the companies. Some assessments and judgments, something we would like to talk about or just to go through. Nemo, Bonomi will be here, luxury living, insomnia, etc. Last topic, last but not least, this is a trend that was very, very strong before the pandemic, and the pandemic has further speeded up. Well, is the topic of sustainability. So the key role of a sustainable economy. This is a very broad topic. We are talking about recycling new materials and old materials, and the research of new materials in designing, planning products with longer life cycles, sustainability features. But this is something that also deals with the business life in a very overall and a comprehensive perspective. I would like to highlight a couple of aspects. Alessi and Florim became benefit companies. That is, they are non-profit companies, and in their company tax, they also talk about the impact in terms of environment and the society, and they do not have just loss and gain balance sheets, but they also have social responsibility, company responsibility, economic responsibility. So, having said that, what can we expect in the next few months? As I told you before, the sector is keeping better than expected at the moment. The situation is very fluid and flow, and we live from day to day. So the sector keeps afloat and stays afloat. The second part of the year is apart. We cannot make predictions about. Italy was the second country after China that went into this pandemic, and one of the first countries worldwide that got out of the crisis. In an international perspective, the peak has not been reached yet. We are still going through the crisis. Before drawing conclusions and taking stock of the situation, it is important to understand what will happen in fall, in autumn, for two reasons. First of all, public health reasons, and secondly, economic reasons. As we saw, at the moment, if we take a look at orders, economy seems to keep afloat, but we are worried about the future, and we do not know how monetary and economic policies will be effective in the future and an impact on real economy. Well, the three trends are digital, M&A, and sustainability. These are the strongest strengths. So in the middle term, these are the most important topics at the center, at the core of the strategies of all companies. Thank you.
Grazie Alessio.
Thank you, Alessio. I'd like to call Mr. Andrea Bonomi on stage. He's the founder of Best Industrial. Please come on stage. Welcome back. Your passion for design is well known because you already attended our summit a few years ago when you first invested in Floss and B&B, so you still love design. It is a long adventure. What do you like about this sector? Because you invested in this sector with several endeavors. Well, it is one of the few sectors we can work at the core. Invest Industrial helps companies getting organized. So this industry needs help in these terms. Invest Industrial is one of the biggest private equities in Italy, and we have 4 billion euros of capital in our investment funds. We manage 11 billion, especially in Italy and Spain, in industrial operations. So as I was saying, this industry is quite complex because the investor needs to be educated and needs to know how to interact with the other players. It is an industry that needs to learn from the other players, and it is also a family-oriented business because most of the companies are family-run, and this element is quite present and quite important. You recently had an operation with Knoll, one of the leading brands in terms of office furniture. Why? Well, our investments in the world of design, and we also invested in stones and other manufacturing materials. Our turnover is 2.6 billion. Knoll is a US company that works in the same sector. It is a company with a great history. They were looking for an anchor investor. We are a minority investor, so this has nothing to do with design holding, but the philosophy is the same. Both Knoll's management and knows customers and employees, really love the product and the heritage of this company and of this sector. And this is something that we share with them and we share with our Italian investments. Do you have development plans in Europe? You work both in the US and Europe. What are the drivers of growth for these companies? If you look at the dimension, the turnover is around $1 billion, but the companies are very focused on some geographical areas. They're very strong in the US. They are growing in Europe, but they are weaker in Asia. So if you look at every company in the design sector, we don't have a very complete company yet. We come from fashion, and big groups share their weight between US, Europe, and Asia. We're not there yet in the world of design. Design companies, I believe, but you can ask to Gabriella Del Torchio later, and she has maybe a different approach. But I still don't know what the format, the leading format will be in the world of design. We're trying to help companies investing, bringing capitals, bringing tranquility, and giving them a long-term vision. But if you look at a company playing in this space, they don't clearly know who are their majority or minority investors, who are their partners. We are in the Borsa, and of course, going to the stock market has advantages and disadvantages. The president of the Italian stock market is not here. He's not here, so we can say whatever we want. So stock market has advantages and disadvantages. As I mentioned, private equities has advantages and disadvantages. It also has its limitations. And we see some interesting experiments, Gabriele will mention them later, for the creation of an evergreen structure, kind of an intermediate form between private equity capital which is not maybe sometimes attached to the companies, because the investors can help you from a financial standpoint in a certain period of life of your business, but it's not they're not your wife. Maybe if you want to build something that lasts for long, you ask your wife, or maybe not, maybe that was not the right example. But we are seeing some experiments of new forms, and it would be great if it could come from Italy. So in this sector, we don't have a fixed model for growth, as we could maybe see in other sectors. Yes, we're lacking a model, but we're also lacking an entrepreneur who understands or who is ready for that. They maybe say, okay, let's wait and see. In Italy, we have to pay close attention, because Pan Bianco here is at the core of the philosophy. Italy has a DNA that's based in design and fashion, but wood is changing really rapidly. Our colleague before mentioned the importance of fairs and physical events. The Salone di Genova was one of the most important events for nautical events. Nobody goes to Genova anymore because there's an event in Cannes or Monaco. The same is happening for fashion. Runaways in Milan are going through a tough time. We have to protect design from this outcome. The world is changing. We see changes taking place everywhere. We invested in Denmark with Faspussen, in Danish design. It's not maybe as sophisticated as the Italian products, but the world is going towards maybe a different lifestyle, and we really have to pay close attention. So you mean for design, Italy is still the main hub, but we cannot lose this competitive advantage, and we have to defend it. Yes, we have to defend it with our management, our financial investments. Design is not, of course, only based in Milan, but Milan is a really brave city, and I think we can succeed, but we cannot rest on our laurels forever. So looking at your participation, I see that there's another company in this space, Jacuzzi. Did you acquire the control 2 years ago? Yes. We're not fully there as design holding. Word of bathrooms, healthcare, hot tub is really changing. Jacuzzi has Italian origin. It was founded because the son of the founder had some health issues, and now it has become an American company. Now we see it as products from the 80s or the 90s. But when you bring these products outdoors or in a bathroom, they have a strong potential. If you add design to them, if you include them in our own lifestyle, in today's lifestyle, I think they can be interesting. They, of course, suffer from the US lockdown before the delivery time, so summer. So it was quite, it suffered quite a hit from the lockdown. How you see private equity in Italy nowadays? Because it arrived in Italy later than in other countries. The first experiments maybe did not go so well. Maybe because of the operator, or maybe because of the entrepreneurs. What is the evolution of private equity in Italy? Private equity brought liquidity, cash flow. You could not sell companies. When I was young in Italy, there weren't private investors. So that was a really strong point. We are now more disciplined in reaching a certain goal. But if private equity tries to tell you what you have to do, private equity cannot do that. We are just investors. So private equity also damaged somehow some companies, but the evolution of private equity worldwide, you have investors who are minority investors, investors who help you with technologies, others who give you a guideline. And as an entrepreneur, you have possibilities that you have access to possibilities you didn't have before, and that's important for economy. So sometimes things didn't work, but in some other cases, companies were saved or grew thanks to private equity. So private equity will continue growing. The word of private companies, we have this, let's say, stock exchange outside of the actual stock exchange, and it's really big. It's getting bigger, and there you can find financing. Private equity, especially in this moment of crisis when people will need investments, I think private equity will play a crucial role. This 4 billions plus one, so around 5 billions we will invest in the next few years into it. We will inject into Italian economy. We hope we can help the system. So if we need to send a message to design entrepreneurs, we can say that private equity is undergoing a segmentation, and it is important for entrepreneurs to find the right partner for their own needs. Yes, this is crucial. Not all private equities are created equal. You may like working with invest industrial, or you can prefer working with somebody else. There are all types of investors, small or big, specialized or general. You have to find the right fit for your company. And this is very important because it's a choice you make only once. You can make only once, and you cannot get it wrong. So pricing is not as important as filling. Yes, because in the world of design, we have many partnerships. So you replace family members who want out, but we still don't have the model buy and sell. You have an ambition for your company, and you are looking for a partner. Then you can be a majority or you can keep the minority of the company, but you have to choose the right partner, right investor for your company. I think that was very useful, and I hope to see you again next year. Thank you.
Abbiamo un processo di, vedete, ogni
Okay, we have to clean things after each speaker, but I'm calling on stage Federico Palazzari, CEO of Nemo Lightning. Welcome, Federico. Nemo Lighting is a lighting company. I'm intrigued by your entrepreneurial story. You don't come from this sector as the majority of entrepreneurs in this sector do. I was 28. I am a lawyer. And I worked in a firm who worked with Artemide. I met Ernesto Gismondi, and I was really attracted to his project. So I said, okay, I would like to do something similar to what he's doing. That's how things started. But you didn't join Artemide, no, I didn't. I started questioning my job, and Ernesto told me, or either you work with contracts or with catalogs, you cannot do both. And then he was very encouraging because I was trying to figure out what to do. And he told me, you have a home? Yes. Okay, well, you can fail then. A very American approach. It's a truly post-war entrepreneurial spirit. And this is the base of all of our companies in this sector. Our strength comes from very tough experience, the war experience. 90% of our important design companies were born after World War II, so they faced the first globalization. After that, I made a lot of mistakes. Then I found a company which needed a partner. Then I met Gruppo Cassina, and then Nemo came along. And in the past 10 years, we created this small story that's still very satisfying for me, very fulfilling for me and for those who work with me. Building things without a previous base, it's tough, but you can really make things more personal. So the fact that you did not come from this sector had its pros and cons. Yes, because you are by yourself, so you're maybe more free to fail. You don't have somebody who did better than you. In my family, I had a lawyer, and then movie directors and antiques expert. So that's completely different, and this makes you more open to other people's suggestions. And I think that was very important in my story. Okay, now your company has more than 20 million euros turnover. Yes, that was really important for us. Of course, we pay close attention to growth, but we also became very visible. Numbers are great. We are creating cash flows. And if you have good cash flow, you are free. This is a really crucial equation. And I try to work on that every day. What is your vision for the market? So, healthcare crisis aside, what is your take on the development of Italian businesses? I'm really passionate about the work style of Northern Europe companies, because I think they're a very important inspiration for us to grow. The Italian companies are quite democratic, because all companies share the same issues. Of course, they can have different turnover, more or less zeros, more or less figures, but if you go to the essence of their operations, I think issues are the same. So comparing yourself to other paradigms is very important. So our resources in terms of communication or sales, compared to the same resources of same companies in Northern Europe, the ratio is 1 to 5. So they have less SKUs, but they have many more people trying to push the products in terms of sales, in terms of communication. So we have, on the other hand, many products and less people. So they have simpler systems and more push, while here is the other way around. Yes, we produce a lot, but of course, mass is important, but we have to communicate the product. Of course, there's a digital aspect to it, but especially in moments such as the ones we're living in, we see new way of communicating. We have to go back to be close to the people. So maybe these companies you mentioned are more famous abroad. Well, I'm not that expert, but Scandi model and Mr. Bonami mentioned Louis Poulsen. I studied them, and they worked in less countries. They have less products, but they have higher turnovers. I started wondering what they do. If I have one salesperson, they have 5 salespeople. That's the difference. So it is important to study these dynamics. Our business is simple at its core. We are about people. And it is a slow sector. And this is what saves us, maybe. Being slow is nice for once. We have one collection per year, and this collection lasts for the following 20 years, which is completely different from fashion. This lockdown helped us to understand the reality and understanding how other companies work. This is really interesting. I always work with many businesses. I am very passionate about products, but we're not that disciplined here in Italy, so the catalogs sometimes gets out of hand. It depends on who you meet, what happens. I think all of our companies have little love stories, but sometimes we produce too much and are not that disciplined. Yes, we should have more control. You acquired, I think last year, 1% of Zoomtoben. Yes, 2 years ago, actually. The percentage is that we're trying to increase our percentage. I wanted to work with Zoomtoben. They have 1.2 billion turnover across 3 divisions. When you start from scratches, you have your own personal myths. You want to have somebody to follow at Zoomtoben. 20 years ago was my main reference for architectural lighting. So I wanted to meet them and work with them, create synergies with them. And when 2 years ago the company was going through changes, I thought I could say, okay, we can work with you, we want to work with you. And I thought it was a nice gesture as well as a financially significant gesture. So I think we could really be introduced to a family and a company that is so important. We are working together. I cannot say much because they're on the stock market, but we share their values. We are very small compared to them, but when you start talking to CEO and families, you realize problems are the same. You don't really think of balance sheets. You think of what you should do, and when you see that there is sameness to the actions you should really carry out, we go back to the idea of diligence. You have to do things. You have to work. Sometimes we are alone in our own companies. We don't have many point of references. So it is nice to have sparring partners to talk to. Even events like this are very important. The first physical event happening in Milan after lockdown, and we are here, we are alive, and we are trying to interpret the future. Of course, it will be an uncertain future, but we're sure we'll get back to work. Are you optimistic? What are your forecasts for the following months with regard to orders? You say that the slowness saved you. Of course, it's not going to be our best year, but we'll be still alive. It is okay if you don't grow every year. If we didn't have this halt, maybe we could not. We wouldn't have the time to reflect on things. We're working on people now, not so much on products. We are looking for the right people. We are interviewing many people, and this is a way to interact and to exchange thoughts and ideas. We are working more on people than on products, while generally is the other way around. Especially in Italy, we are super focused on products. Products don't sell themselves. Even if they're great quality or innovative, they don't sell themselves. So we are trying to be close to people. Of course, you can be close online or remotely, and hopefully we'll then meet in person again. Thank you again for your thoughts and ideas.
Chiamo sul palco.
Now I would like to call on stage Aldo Cibic, who is architect and founder of Civic Workshop, and Giancarlo Floridi, who is architect and partner of On-Site Studio. Whom I don't see. Yeah, he's here. Sorry.
Uno dei due posti.
Welcome. We talked to a businessman, to a private equity operator. Now we are wondering, you are architects, so you deal with design of objects, furniture, offices, spaces. After all these months of home office, how will everything change? And we had this kind of mix between home and office, since homes and houses became the only working space. So starting with Giancarlo, maybe, how do you see this change and what are you seeing at the moment?
Prima di tutto che
Well, first of all, when we resumed and when we started again these activities, we were enthusiastic about that because we had to stop some projects. We had some kind of still stand well, it was like some projects like a Pirelli Center, which is a building that has a long history, so a long perspective or over time compared to the choices we made. Also in terms of what we did and what we had carried out before. So we have to work on long times, longer framework. with all the choices that are connected to this project. At the moment, there are some projects that came from history, and we were not really interested in the duration of the projects. The projects that were set up started from the identification of needs and innovating elements, or linked to the timely answers we want to give to fulfill the current needs. So what kind of projects are we talking about in terms of contents? At the moment, we are working in a hotel in Brussels for a Swedish operator working in Northern Europe. It's a very nice history because it starts from a problem with some rooms, but it was not just about that. It was also an urban issue. What we saw at the moment is it can also be beautiful because you can solve problems over time. So the physical dimension of this topic is more or less able to overcome pandemics, current difficulties and hardships. And he addressed, the investors addressed on-site studios, since we are talking about urban architecture and the city works on a very long time frame in order to overcome hardships. And the story of this hotel in Brussels is very interesting. At the beginning, it was an identity with all the butlers and all the guests, etc. And the telephone was an innovating element at the moment, or the dimension of luxury items. And then it became like a palace where Jake Kelly also was accommodated. And lastly, it became like a hotel with 500 rooms for meetings of the European Union. So the plot, the urban dimension stayed the same, and this is like long-lasting building, but a lot of different activities, a number of activities were carried out there, and this made it very interesting. Aldo Cebic, your vision of how we are getting out of this situation and what will change in terms of design, in terms of space design, etc. Well, at the moment, there are people that say we do not have to miss a crisis, because crises are an opportunity after all. We were talking about that, about rethinking this morning. Well, I am really interested in research projects, and currently we are developing a system in Costa Rica for sustainability, where we can bring also the Italian design. Another topic which was quite interesting to me, because I also organized some Biennale events, was about the way we live together with nature. And we are talking about 2004 at that time. I was not really interested in this topic. And the idea of a healthier life, it's not just about the city or the shutdown. I was in Vicenza at that time, and I spent a lot of time with my family. So the idea of people doing the same things that can go to healthier places where life is cheaper, because you are connected without being close to the airport, to the station, etc. So this is an interesting aspect, and also, well, the previous speech was about that. So we wanted to think about things. We wanted to understand how to get out of this situation in an innovative way. It is like a safety card or something at Formula One. So the same departure line. And it's not just a competition, but it's a way of implementing and setting up new models in which we can also finance all these things. And we are We know that the things are different now, but where is this agriculture project? It's in China. I live there 6 months a year, and I'm really sorry I cannot be there because otherwise I would have spent like 2.5 months in Shanghai. In terms of spaces, in terms of environments, etc., do you think that this situation also brought about changes in terms of vision, different movements of people, etc.? This is interesting, in my opinion. And if I had to think ideally about that, on the one hand, we have the way we leave houses, homes, and there is a new way of living that. I discovered that I felt really at ease at home. I left Milan and I am in a province. In the province, I feel very well there. And that environment becomes also a working environment and a workplace. So you have to understand how to manage your working hours, and you just stay home at home because sometimes we are worried about not getting in touch with people, but this is the only way we can work. And another aspect, and this is something I was not sorry about, is the issue of co-working spaces for younger people, so meeting places where people can meet, etc. Well, it's not just about the company, it's also about this idea of living the future in another way. So the future is based on new disciplines, and sometimes we need other people and we need other ways of working. So this idea, the co-working idea, is also a way of creating new relationships with people in a specific context, for example. And well, it's not just about having a house, but it's also about having places where we can meet, where we can catch up, when we can have an exchange of ideas. In spite of Zoom and all the digital tools, there are things that can be only done when people are together. But these are new places. Giancarlo, what about you? Well, we had an experience in Milan, which is a cultural center, San Saldo. This was a very long process. It was a public office, which was protected. It was like a company, it was like a firm. And it contained like a program that is very different. What was shown is that these spaces can contain very different functions. For example, Basel could host different events. It was like a hostel, youth hostel for concerts, etc. So they kept on working in very different ways, in a very innovative way, in very interesting ways as well. And on the other hand, concerning what Aldo was saying, I think, Angelo Lunati, my partner, and we have this idea. So urban architecture has this kind of dimension. On the one hand, we have sustainability, not just from the technical point of view, but also the time. Time is also a sustainable element, and also the ability of things to last over time. So the lifetime, the life cycle of things. So we have to be able to have different things during the time, over time, during transformations, etc. As I told you before, in this period, there are some players in Milan that organized competitions. We took part in different competitions, Torreggiano, for example. Well, this is the current situation of COVID, and it was something that was like part of things. So we had to think about offices in a new way, in a different way, and this makes us think about the responsiveness of cities, resistance of cities, so all the different aspects that can be found there. So developers must be more flexible, and based on the context, they can be rescheduled, they can be reshaped without being given up or left. Well, then we also have another mode of action which is very interesting. It is something that makes us think about humanitarian issues, etc. And we asked ourselves a lot of questions. Sometimes we talk about the fact that the hardness of materials and the economy of means, etc. All this is something we like, something that is familiar to us, and this is the most interesting way, the most interesting aspect of what leads us not to destroy everything or to have to find a solution, but try to find and identify a kind of continuity. Milan is an example of that. Milano is worldwide known for this kind of rebirth after the World War, for example. So we can talk about that, and this is something that is very close to us, because now we are living something similar, and we don't want to forget our past, but in these regards we still have a lot of things that we could teach to other people coming to Milan. They see it as a model. So you think that Milano will recover, right? Milano will become the center, once again the hub, because nowadays or today it is a little bit set aside and or left aside. Because it's a little bit empty at the moment, etc. Yes, we think so, that Milan will recover very soon. So the kind of it's a very fascinating city from the urban point of view. Whatever is produced here is very trendy and interesting for a lot of people. So the perspective is a long one, and it cannot be affected by the pandemic. Well, Giancarlo, we can also talk about the recovery of provinces, because sometimes we don't think about living there, and we know that we have the problem of thickness, sometimes a number of people living in a city, overcrowded cities, etc., etc. So all this can be a problem, but also the idea of giving a boost to the province is something that paved the way in the last few years, and this is an interesting issue. We have a beautiful country with beautiful cities that were completely affected. So Italy is Milan oriented. I love Milan, but I say that there are also so many sectors and so many industries that we could use. So the idea of giving a life to this beautiful province we have, and finding new solutions, economic, social and economic ideas, just to give a boost to the province. This is a way of strengthening the country. Otherwise, we say, okay, Milan is there, and Milan exists for something, but for something else we have nothing. I mean, this is one of the great opportunities we do have at the moment. Okay, Aldo, you said you work 6 months a year in China. Well, what is the vision in Italy from China? So how are we seen? How are Italians seen by Chinese people? And how can this have a negative impact? I mean, they are also, we say that they hit something, etc. Well, something interesting and something I would be interested in, I would like to have like a project on this, is that the world, China, Turkey, America, etc., see us as the non plus ultra, so the best,
then we know that we can find a lot of problems in our country. We cannot solve these problems, etc. We cannot overcome them. Well, we have to have this kind of strength, looking at us from outside with the eyes of strangers or foreigners. So the idea of making something that is a kind of dream for Italy. Sometimes we were disappointed after an experience, and I would be interested in carrying out a survey, a study on that. China, what is interesting is that sometimes I have arguments on China. I feel, well, in Shanghai, in China, Shanghai is a peculiar city. In China, it's not like a typical standard city. Well, the Chinese are very nice and kind. They are very affectionate people, and I teach at university, and together with my dean, I'm a partner of my dean, and we are talking about urban redevelopment at the moment. In China, I found something that I cannot find here. So whatever I want to do can be done. So if you have just the power, you will not move forward. But if you are in China, you cannot even figure out what it looks like. I mean, you are there, you have Starbucks, they have like 800 points of sale in Shanghai, etc. And also, this place, Shanghai, is new research center for agriculture, food, energy, recycling, etc. So this is something that happens there, but not here. And the same applies to the economy. There are quotas and districts where 70% of older or elderly people live. Then you have university students, you have professors and teachers and lecturers, and they just move there. And then they set up like small hotels, bars, cafeterias, areas where you cannot even find, where you can find a good espresso or a croissant or something like that. So this has a great potential. We are talking about 16,000 meters as a district, and this also changes the soul and a part of the city. I am 65 years old, and if I stay here, I will see nothing. If I am there, maybe there's something more that goes on. I mean, I think that it is a kind of added value, and I hope that something similar will happen also here. Okay, just to close this interview, Giancarlo, let's continue talking about Milan. We see a lot of bikes everywhere at the moment, and this crisis, this health crisis. Well, do you think that this health crisis will lead to an increase in terms of use of these sustainable means of transport? Will this have an impact? Will there be like tangible things that will change in the short term? Well, how technology will change and the means of transport. I can't say anything about that, but there is a part that shouldn't change. So this idea that extraordinary thing that is given by technology is that we can leave it like this, because every time there is a problem we have to change technology. Well, now this is not necessary. So technology changes. They are not no more an issue. Well, I went out very seldom during lockdown, and I discovered a little bit more about the physical dimension of the city. Well, how big the parking spots are, the streets, etc. And also the lighting features, fixtures, sorry, in parks, etc. So there are some parts that is acknowledgeable, recognizable. Other ones are new in terms of use, but the shape is always the same. And they talk about these empty cities, also pictures. Auger is a French photographer that worked at the beginning of the 20th century in Paris. And the most beautiful pictures from Paris are the ones that were taken by him. So white and black photos, a people-less city, so a city without people. So this is a really fascinating, without saying what day it was or what kind of activities would be carried out there. the ability to be resistant. To being resistant, we saw that there are some new projects. There is another one that was carried out for competition, and we tried to introduce some open spaces, a tree covered square in the middle of an area where only towers could be found. So looking at things in another way, rediscover things, their characteristics, peculiarities, the strongest characteristics. So I think that we still have to recognize and acknowledge things that are already there, that can be used, they can be reinterpreted, they can be reconnected to contemporaneity without having to start from scratch, as if nothing had happened before. Aldo, would you like to close? Would you like to say something at the end or draw conclusions? Well, I can close this round table, and we have to not to miss this crisis, because crisis is once again an opportunity for all of us. I think there is an opportunity, so setting up new alliances, for example, new connections, people that were not talking to each other started talking again to each other after the shutdown. So this is crucial, this is vital. These systems are very, very narrow. Sometimes people give up and when they go away to build something new, maybe we're a little bit lost. I don't know which the right solution is, but anyway, thank you very much for your attention. Gianluca Mollura, CEO of Mod.
Grazie. Mettiamo in mezzo che è pronto prima.
Se vai in Lombardia, mi hanno detto...
La mascherina puoi mettere in tasca.
Ok.
Allora, è un...
Welcome back. As you were here a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, right? But some things have changed meanwhile. We talk about mod, e-commerce, just something about the company's history. It's kind of platform, right? Well, our company was set up 52 years ago. Thanks to my mother, who set up it in 1968, founded it. And as most colleagues, I am the second generation. I started in the company. And at a certain point in time, I saw an opportunity, but also a risk. And in 2011, we started this digital project. It is basically a site, it was a site, basically. And then we understood that there is a huge world behind the website, so we have to identify the important things. We have to print out a list of priorities, a to-do list, and you can just choose a couple of elements and you can push and try to bring them forward. Well, this is a kind of an opportunity. We don't have the opportunity to do everything in one life only, but we started, we had a growth, we grew year by year in a constant way. We had like a plus 25% in 1 year. Yes, that's quite an important goal, but we didn't have like plus 200% of growth rate, because our growth have always gone through our hard work. So we worked very hard. We were workaholic, if you want. We tried to organize and schedule our work in a better way, and that's why we had an e-commerce activity. We started an e-commerce activity. This is not a core business, but a parallel business, let's say. And we would like to bring about the growth of e-commerce. I was listening to some figures before. We have some difficulties when it comes to writing them down, but we had an opportunity, a great opportunity, and we understood that we could put together these two souls and we could pave the way But if you have to pave a very accurate, a very precise way, because otherwise you get lost. So we wanted to strive for greatness. We wanted to think big, let's say. So in 2011 we didn't have COVID, but it was quite an important, quite a difficult period with a lot of hardships, above all in southern Italy. Well, we didn't have very good outlooks and perspectives or forecasts, and we couldn't say, okay, we're going to invest some money and then I will see how I can manage the money. Well, it was very dangerous to do that, so we had to take a lot of risks. We invested a lot at the beginning with a lot of fears, and a part of those investments had no return on investment. And then in the end, we started seeing some light. And this was a very exciting journey I embarked on, and it brought me here. And last year I made a very important decision in my life. I changed completely. I discovered what private equity funds are. And when I had this opportunity, they asked me to go and talk to a representative from a fund. I didn't know what a fund was, and I was not very proficient. I was not very good at English, and I understood that this was a further step forward. We wanted to pave the way once again. We wanted to identify a path. So I understood, I got it was like a further step, and it was part of a family, part of a project. And I sold 52%, and then COVID broke out, and I said, okay, it was a good decision. Because yesterday they asked me, what did you think when there was COVID? Well, I made the right decision when I decided to sell everything. But then we also have a second part, and I want to be very frank, very sincere with all of you. Then COVID came, and we are still going on. We are doing quite well, and I think that the fund is quite satisfied. We are acquiring new customers and clients. I said, welcome back. And a question I would like to ask you, what has changed over time? I'm talking about your company, your companies, your businesses, your providers and suppliers. Well, in terms of e-commerce, so what were the main or the major changes that took place in the last few years? Because a couple of years ago, there were the first businesses, Italian businesses, design businesses that had like an e-commerce website, maybe 2 or 3, a couple of them. Did you notice any changes? No major changes, or at least I noticed a change, but in terms of suppliers and providers from outside the country, from abroad. So sometimes businesses have differences in terms of catalogs, and visibility is very different, it's very varied. I mean, catalogs, but not just catalog. And if we put everything together, problems and opportunities, then we say that opportunities are more than problems. And if we only had the opportunity to measure the opportunities, well, this would be much clearer and much easier to understand for companies. We have at least 100 opportunities compared to one problem. I mean, this is the relationship, one problem and 100 opportunities and chances. We are doing our best. We feel we have a responsibility. We have been working with these companies for many, many years, so we feel the burden. We feel the duty to make the most of the good part of us. Sometimes we send like requests, etc., and you get that the real problem deals with the buyers or with the suppliers. In other cases, we were talking about the Scandinavian area. This is an important part in our business. I was working for Scandinavian companies. I work with them. I have been working with them for 20 years. I have always researched a lot, and I cared a lot about them. They have a completely different vision of the world. They say the market is free, the client can spend his or her money however he or she will. and there are some contracts, but there are also some written rules. And sometimes in life, you have to be able to understand how to cope with business, if you have like a value scale or priorities or a value pyramid, well, you seldom make mistakes, because when you have a lot of values, you can always get out with the best possible solution. People who do not want to cheat other people or find shortcuts or something like that. Well, sometimes you just stop, you have a still stand, but in the morning you have like an inspiration, you have a motivation, so you go on this path, and this is the way I motivated myself over time. Well, COVID, how have things and the market changed with COVID?
Ma guarda,
I was in Monza until February 23rd because I had a client, a CEO of a big private equity fund, and I was working with him to help him choose the furniture for his Mykonos villa. And then we had the first symptoms of COVID around in Italy. We had a meeting in March, and I said, okay, let's cancel it, because if we have to go into a lockdown, I'd rather be in Sicily. And we saw then that things were getting worse. We were quite ready, I have to say, regardless of some technical digital adjustments, we were quite ready. So we started working remotely quickly. We closed our showrooms, but we never stopped working, really. We continued working from home. Then I brought my laptop at home. I worked more than ever. I didn't even have the time to watch a movie or something else. We never stopped. Our whole team was very attentive. They knew it was a dangerous time, but a time ripe with opportunities. So we had to push, and we pushed through. And I think we came on the other side quite well, and we're very happy with what we did. I think what happened really give an impulse to something that was already happening, but you have to do it even quicker, with the same efficiency, but running. You cannot really stop nitpicking. You cannot really think of a overall strategy. You have to work day by day and then tweak the strategy as you go. Some markets fare better than others. The order drop. With regard to the order values, we are quite in line with our expectations. So we're around same as last year. We lost a bit of turnover, especially in the 4 weeks of complete lockdown, because we couldn't really sell. Because of course you can issue an invoice if you can send products to your customers. We now are recovering, because our turnover is 1.5 what it was before. I didn't look at turnover. I didn't know. I looked at order only. Now I have to look at turnover too. This is what the fund helped me doing. So, getting more familiar with turnover. So e-commerce is more used than ever. Is this the same for high-range products? Yes, during the lockdown, we launched our new e-commerce. It was quite cumbersome, because we have so many products, many complex products, and it is really important operation that would maybe take 6 months, but we decided to accelerate that in the light of the new event. We sold many products for kitchen or outdoors. We did a lot of projects. Many a lot of customer service because we had many Italians writing to us asking for info because shops were closed. But we're happy with the results. We are convinced more than ever that the choice we made in 2011 and the experience we acquired over the years is something positive, valuable today, because we understood that we had great intuition doing the creating the e-commerce. So about that, you think customer will be facilitated in his purchasing? I think e-commerce will continue growing in a significant way, even in the high range segment, because there are some products. I have to say, our idea is that the end customer wants simplicity. A lot of time we try to complicate the product because we want to customize products because the architect wants to do that or the designer wants to do that. But I think this trend is going down. Of course, there will be a share of market for that, but people also like to have iconic products, easy to understand, easy to use products. They want to make eclectic, maybe, home. My idea was always that I always had friends who mixed, Prada with Zara, and I think in the home we have the same. You can create a home with different pieces from different brands. Everybody dreams about Italian design, but I can tell you that in my experience, this is true, absolutely. But people also like novelties. People want to have something that's uncommon, unusual, different. We sense that, and this is why our catalog is quite broad. So going back to lockdown, people learn how to, purchase online. So design shoppers will be more tech savvy. I think so, because our customers don't have much time to shop around or to stay in shops. They maybe get bored or they send someone else, maybe the wife, to have a look. Even wives are getting bored to, roam around showrooms, because I have colleagues with big shops and showrooms. They keep it fresh and updated, but furniture shops are not the most exciting place and where to spend, hours. So I think web and digital will play an increasingly crucial role in terms of choice for products. I think out of 10 purchases, 10 go through a digital assessment. Then the customer decides, comes into the shop and buys. But the freedom of being able to buy at midnight because it's your wife's birthday, or 3 in the morning, just because. I always say that if a customer wants to buy a Gucci bag online, the customer might change brand and buy another brand rather than going into the shop, physical shop. This is what's happening. So you have to make sure that your customer finds you at midnight. Otherwise, you lose that client. This is my perception of things based on what people tell us. In September, you will open a store in Milan. We talked about e-commerce. Let's go back to brick and mortar now. Yes, we will open in Milan because for us, Milan is a crucial place for future development. We do so in a very humble way because this shop is quite small, 200 square meters. We will be very careful, and we will pay extreme care I've been working on this for 6 months. I'm handpicking providers and products because this is fundamental for our company's growth. We interviewed around 100 users, 100 customers of ours. 70% of them thought that we were in Milan. When they discovered we were actually in Messina, some asked, "Where is Messina?" And then some other booked a holiday to come and visit us because they discovered it is a beautiful place. But our shop in Milan will be new because we will bring brands that are not here actually. You think that you have everything in Milan. We discovered that some things were not available. And so in a very humble and simple way, we want to start a journey that hopefully will be positive for us. Great. What's your forecast for 2020? Will you be able to grow by 25% as every year? I hope we'll get by. 2020 is a very peculiar year. We don't have a forecast. Some already know that, but we don't think we will grow by 25% because it wouldn't be viable, really. Our ambition is to grow, at least have like a little plus sign. We're working towards that. It is too early to say. We need to understand what's happening in September and October. This is what we're getting. We're eager to know and see how things go. Thank you, Gianluca.
Ritorniamo a una tavola rotonda.
So another round table. Giulia Molteni, Head of Marketing and Communication for Molteni Group, and Lorenza Toso from Cartel. We have 2 videos. This is from Molteni.
And unchanged. One family, 3 generations, meeting with great architects and designers. Shared values among the 4 brands in the group, with a strong managerial imprinting. And today, the 2020 collections, Art Direction by Vincent van Duysen, have a new home. And an immersive virtual tour to discover them in every detail. The headquarters have also renewed the location of the Molteni Museum, designed by Ron Gillard, which hosts the Heritage Collection and other masterpieces. Because there is no future without memory. Stay tuned, the best is yet to come.
Scusate, era un video solo, non c'era quello di Cartel.
Sorry, it was one video only. We didn't have the video from Cartel. Lorenza Luti. You're working in marketing and retail. You are one of the Italian companies with the biggest retail network. What is the situation nowadays? What you worked on during this past few months? Everybody's talking about digital. What you worked on? We've always been working on 3 distribution channel, retail, which is our core business, e-commerce, and contract. Retail, we had just launched a new creative concept and experiential concepts, and we are still working with that. We worked on future projects. We made the shop more neutral so that the products stand out more, and we worked on the experience, and we connected that to our online business because we want to make e-commerce and digital and retail as one, to give all customers the same experience and prompt people who look online to go into the shop. We focus on the experience, and we want the customers not to be afraid to try and test our lifestyle and our production, which is really about the whole house, not about one single object. And we also worked on e-commerce a lot because we launched in January a new website, cartel.com, the 2.0 version. You were one of the 3 companies who already had an e-commerce that was ready. Yes, we were one of the first to do monobrand design website because we wanted to have a more direct control and a more direct relationship with the end customer, because we want to be close to our customers and have a strong relationships with them. So we worked on the e-commerce, and we wanted to optimize logistics, collection. You were with OneUp, and yes, we exited OneUp because we wanted a more direct control and do more things in-house. We now open to the US and Canada. We will open our website to Middle and Far East. We optimize our collection. We have 100% of our collection online. Before we didn't have it. Logistics and shipments were also optimized. So we launched positively. You mentioned that e-commerce accounts for 15-20% of your business. Our website is still small, but it is important. It wants to be a hub for retail and for all of our customers to learn about our product. They can find a lot of documents that weren't there before. We also have a network of e-tailers. The biggest e-tailers, they work online as well. And this has to be connected. We cannot really give an exact estimate, but that's a good share. Yes, a little over 15%. What about e-commerce for you, Giulia? You're ready to launch in America? Yes, we're thinking of launching a pilot project in the US only. It is a more digital-oriented market, and the audience is more online purchase prone. So we want to divide the service into 2 big areas. So e-commerce, and then a made-to-order service to guarantee the craftsmanship, which is what makes our businesses stand out. And we want to fulfill the needs of a very demanding customer base, so they can customize the product thanks to digital touch base and through digital storytelling. In 2015, we launched a digital project with a consulting company. They helped us creating this new digital ecosystem, and we have this integration between the different companies within the group. So we're working in synergy. We see this morphing, this slow merging of home and office, so we can have products that can be used in several settings, and that's a great opportunity for us. We won a contract for National Library in Jerusalem, and Molteni, Dada, and Uniform will work on this project. So you do both home and office. Do you see this merging, this morphing? I think this crisis brought about 2 changes. Push towards digitalization, so e-commerce. We activated online consulting service, So to help architects and customers to interact, so Molteni at Home, to support our products. We say that often we're great with products, but we lacking in customer service, while US customers expect excellent customer service. So we worked really hard on that to support customer care and all related services. We want our customer service to be as high quality as our own product. And the other change, the other structural change we are seeing is this fluidity of spaces and an office that invades the whole home. It will bring about new needs in terms of infrastructure, in terms of culture, because type of socialization post-COVID will be changed. The entrepreneurial culture will change. Gartner states that 74% of Italian, US-based companies thinks of having employees working remotely for more than one day a week. So the home will be a home office, and office spaces, working spaces will need to be reassessed, will be rescaled, and socialization will have to be reassessed. So when people will go back into office, hopefully when there won't be the need for social distancing, we will need more fluid spaces with maybe home furniture as well. Your collection is quite peculiar, Lorenza. You extended your collection. This had an impact on your organization, on your supply chain. How digitalization influenced your work? We are a creative lab, so we're always looking at the future, especially in terms of collection. We want to experiment and innovate. We want to innovate in all directions. In terms of materials, for example, we did a lot of testing. At the Salone, we wanted to present what we've been working on for the past few years, because we've been working towards that. We are focusing on sustainability, and we try to find novelties and introduce it on the market, adding technologies, new materials, and new functionalities. We presented a new chair in recycled material, 100% recycled material. We launched in January, so we use scraps to produce that. And so we are joining the circular economy, and we want to introduce that into other products as well. So we worked on bioplastics, so biomaterial, new types of woods, ceramics, tiles, and upholstery as well. We want to use fabrics and yarns that are completely ecological. This is our focus nowadays, and this has an impact on the collection, but everything starts from a business strategy and a business ethics that we've been pursuing for years. Last year, we celebrated our 17th anniversary, and we presented our new manifesto. And we're evolving on that. We are reflecting on this, and we are following the 2030 United Nations agenda. We want to reach these goals. So there's a lot of innovation and creativity, and we're looking at the future. And this, of course, impacts the collection and the distribution and all different strategies. Of course, this year there is no Salone del Mobile. Did you slow down the presentation of new product? What was your strategy? I think this Salone is crucial. You can do all digital presentations. You can work at all levels, tutorial to explain the new products. We work with end customers, with our clients. We had launches in January and February. They were postponed. We did not join the idea of a digital salone, but every month we wanted to introduce a new product. And then in the next year's salone, we will present other projects too. So you divided over a few months what you wanted to present at the salone. Yes, of course, because there is a difference in presenting a physical product, in connecting. You cannot reproduce that online. How is the market responding to these smaller presentations? I made tutorials as well. I think it was positive. We have a positive outlook. We are quite agile in our structure, so we think we can survive and look at the future. Even if we really questioned many procedures, we worked on customer care, focusing on the customer. With digital, you think that the customer calls you, comes to you directly. They want to talk to you, chat to you, and they want an immediate answer. They don't only go through, shops or through our clients. I wanted to implement a chat on our website to be closer to the customer, to tell what the product is about, because behind every product there's a great story, and this is also helpful to answer questions or give advice. The e-commerce cannot only be a window for shopping, it is a way of interacting with your customer. Giulia, what happened in the past few months? It was intense as ever. We are dynamic. My dad always keeps up on things. He worked remotely, but I have to say, this was a good chance to learn something new, even for older generations. I have 3 children, and I'm quite well versed now in e-learning. So I think this period was very productive for us. We decided to focus on our offices. We renovated our headquarters. We have 52 flagships in 5 continents. We have many employees and integrated group, but we decided to update our showroom and the company museum, as shown in the video. So the new collection was showcased in our virtual showroom, and we'll create a digital tour. So we wanted to integrate our companies in one location, especially Molteni and Dada. We had incredible results. It's great to see that family-run companies can be quick, can transform themselves rapidly. We're working for the long term. We build things step by step, as we did over the past 66 years. We always had growth by 10% each year, apart from the crisis years. We could not grow at that time. But I think in 2019 we closed our best year with 365 million turnovers, and all figures improved. Export accounts for 80%, reached 80%. Italy is our first market. Italians love their home. They put great care and great love and pride. But love for design really is present in all 5 continents, in all areas of furniture, homes, contract, offices. Which was maybe our first most important product, because offices have always been global. You could replicate the same headquarters in different cities. So our office company is a mini multinational brand. You need to add lighting to your portfolio. We're working on that. We're moving from being a family-run business to a manager-run business. We are growing. We are on this path, and I think this year would not be as dramatic as people think. Your e-commerce will only be for Molteni or for all the brands. Only Molteni, because it's better with regard to product categories. We have Ponti, very iconic products. We have elements that allow us to work better on the e-commerce. You talked about customization, so part of the e-commerce will be dedicated to architects. Yes, customization and craftsmanship, the possibility of, interacting with architectural firms such as Renzo Piano or great architectural firms. We have great relationships with them. This is something that's very important for us. We have smart factories. We are a bridge between craftsmanship and business factories. So contracts is really important. Contract is growing in spite of the contraction of consumption. Maybe we can discuss this in the next 2 years, because some projects are ongoing. They are postponed. We worked a lot in cruises and navy industry. So maybe the impact can be perceived in 2 years. Yes, we have to see what will happen in the second half of the year. Lorenza, we talked about omnichannel. How can you integrate e-commerce with distributors? Okay, I'm working on that for the future. We're studying this. Retail e-commerce will have to intersect, because you have to reach your customers. Everything revolves around the best possible service. So shops will have to be connected online. We changed our website. We optimized everything. The results are great. The next step will be how to do omnichannel. It will be different from how to do it in fashion, because there's different needs. But this will be done to support retail, and I think we will help them. We have big collection. This will be helpful for them to optimize their stocks and shippings. During this, lockdown, we helped our stores delivering the orders they received. So we started supporting them, and this is a first step towards omnichannel. That's going to be the future. You sell more abroad? Yes. We've always been always export oriented since the 50s, 60s. 20% is Italy, and 80% of our market is abroad, 140 countries. We have 3 monobrands and around 800 shop-in-shop and 2,500 clients around the world. This is my main focus. We want to have quality product with a good presentation because this helps the results. Since you skipped the Salone as everyone else, how are you presenting your new products? It was a shock. My grandfather was one of the founders of the Salone del Mobile, so not being able to be there is really sad, and we are looking forward to next year. We will have it will be the 16th anniversary. We will have all 4 areas present. It's going to be a great and important year. So Salone is about the businesses. Without the Salone, every business decided to do something else. So we launched our collection. We have people coming to our showroom. We renovated our compound. We launched a new project, Quality Ham, a new training center with an immersive experience that can be accessed remotely. We launched our collection, and we are receiving positive answers that were unexpected. So, of course, it's not going to be the best year because the situation has been tiring, even psychologically speaking. So we don't expect great consumption, great purchases. But we couldn't stop. We had to demonstrate that Italian businesses are flexible, are easy to adapt to new needs. We focused on remote working. We focused on products that help dividing spaces, creating some areas of privacies for e-learning, for example, and the response has been good so far. Of course, the international situation is quite uncertain. The US are going through a dramatic situation. You said that you opened in Miami. Yes, we reopened our store, but they cannot go to restaurants, they cannot go to the beaches, so the atmosphere is quite tense. Molteni at home helps you connecting digitally to our stores and connecting stores with end customers, skipping the architect phase because you're not that prone on spending, but you want to change your home, and that's very common in the US. In Italy, we're not that digital, probably the least digital in the world, and we are receiving different requests for quotations. Shops are walking and are in touch with the customers. Are you struggling in America? We do a lot of online never stopped, so we are getting by, but there's no traffic in the stores. New York, nobody is entering the store. They always worked, via telephone or email, so it's almost always been like that. Thank you. So we'll take a small break and then we'll see you again in 15 minutes.